Check 1, 2, test, test. Okay. Frank, are you good? Okay. All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We'll go ahead and get our hearing started. Welcome to the monthly meeting of the City of Des Moines Zoning Board of Adjustment. This board has the power under Iowa law and the zoning ordinance of the City of Des Moines to hear and make decisions on requests for variances and exceptions from the regulations in the zoning ordinance, to consider conditional use requests, and to review appeals from any decision of city staff in the administration of the zoning ordinance. The members of this board are citizens of the City of Des Moines and have been appointed to this board by the City Council. The board members are volunteers and they receive no compensation for their public service. I'm going to take a minute here to introduce our board members. On the audience's right is Tom DeCio. Next to him is Dave Gare. Next to him is Rhonda Cedillo. On the audience's left is Justin Gross. And next to him is Marlis Jones. And my name is Mel Pins, the board chair. And we have one vacant seat that hasn't been, nobody's been appointed yet for that. So I have 6 of 7 of us present today. I'm going to introduce our city staff members who will be assisting us with our proceedings today. First of all, our legal counsel for the Board of Adjustment to my left is Gary Guidelock. Down here, kind of almost in order of appearance, is Frank Dunn-Young, Senior City Planner, Shreyosi Chakravarti, City Planner, Bert Drost, Deputy Planning Administrator, Catherine Drehas, City Planner, and Eric Lundy, our Zoning Enforcement Officer. Tyler Hall's our meeting moderator here down in front. I'll go ahead and cover our meeting procedure. For some of you, this may be your first time in front of the board. You may hope it's your only time. But we will take you through the process here, so don't worry about the process. We'll help you out. But I'll go ahead and review this just so everybody has an idea. The Zoning Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial board. This hearing will be conducted within the procedures and format as authorized by Iowa law and this city's ordinances. This meeting is open to the public. The meeting is being recorded by both audio and video for a legal record of these proceedings. The board members have each received a copy of the agenda and the staff recommendations. And if you haven't picked one of those up yet, copies of the agenda are here by the door in the little black box there. The board is required to base its decision on each item upon the criteria established by law for the type of relief sought by the appellant. The law applicable to each case has been identified in the written staff report. If the facts, as determined by this board, demonstrates that the criteria established by law for granting the relief has been satisfied, then the board must grant the relief. Otherwise, the board must deny the requested relief. Each item will be announced in the order that it appears on the agenda. Items listed on the consent portion of the agenda, which is our first section of the agenda, are not planned to be individually discussed. Rather, they will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report, unless the appellant does not agree to the conditions recommended by staff, or if there's an individual in the audience or a board member that requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda so that a full discussion on the matter can occur. And I'll come back to that consent agenda here in a few minutes. For the regular portion of our agenda, after an item is announced, the city staff will first give a brief overview of the appeal, and they will present any written comments that have been received prior to the hearing. Then the applicant or their representative will be allowed up to 10 minutes to present their appeal. We will then move to the public comment portion of the hearing on that agenda item. Anyone that wishes to speak in support of, in opposition to, or even in neutrality of an appeal will be allowed up to 5 minutes each to provide their comments. This will be their one and only opportunity to address the board regarding the matter at hand. Once all citizens have spoken, the board will then ask any additional questions of staff. And lastly, the applicant will be given 3 more minutes for a rebuttal or other closing comments if they so choose. All speakers must only speak from the podium here in the center of the room and begin their presentation by first giving both their name and address. And that address can be your place of business or your residence as applicable. In the event, you may need to be contacted for legal notices related to the outcome of this appeal. All speakers are requested to remain courteous and to focus their comments only on those facts that demonstrate whether or not the criteria established by law has been satisfied. Speakers are also asked to ensure that they are respectful of time considerations, and if necessary, the board chair will limit further comments by a speaker if they exceed their time limitation. The board chair will then close any further public comment on the agenda item, and the board will immediately deliberate the request, and we will make a decision here today regarding the appeal. Please note that it takes at least 4 affirmative votes for any zoning appeal to gain approval. If your appeal is approved today, we would ask that you wait until at least about a week from now. If you'd need to contact the city's Permit and Development Center to obtain any necessary building or sign permits related to your appeal. This will allow the decision of this board to be documented in the form of a decision and order, which will be then provided to you and city staff. Any appeal that is approved by this board must be implemented, constructed, or otherwise utilized within 2 years of the date of the decision of this board, or such approval shall expire. The decisions of this board can only be appealed in the Iowa District Court. So if you believe you've been harmed by an error made by this board, your only remedy is to seek relief through the court within 30 days of the filing of the board's decision and order. If you believe the zoning regulations applied by this board are wrong, you may petition the city council to change those regulations for future considerations. All material written or otherwise used today as part of any presentation is a part of the permanent record. So if there's anything you want to present today with photos or graphics or maps or anything, if you have not provided copies of those to city staff, you'll need to do so. And you may contact city staff after the hearing if you'd like a copy of any items presented. Finally, for some quick housekeeping items, please avoid any undue conversation in the audience so as to limit distractions during the hearing. You're doing a great job. Please ensure your cell phone has been silenced. So far, so good. And if you need to use a restroom, you can just leave through the main doors. You don't have to go back downstairs. There's some restrooms just past the staircase on the left. And subject to the length of our hearing, we may take a brief recess for maybe 5 minutes around 3 o'clock or so if necessary. So speaking of our hearing, for our agenda for today, I'm going to have Frank come up and we'll see if we have any changes to the published agenda.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the Commission. Frank Dunn-Young, Planning Staff. We have 2 changes to our agenda today. Item 1 has been withdrawn by the applicant. And staff is requesting that item 7 be moved to the consent agenda as the applicant has satisfied all of our general criteria, and we have received some correspondence in support of the request as well.
Okay, so just a quick review then. If you were here for item 1, it was related to some signage and an exception request at 600 East Grand. That's been withdrawn, so we won't take any comments on that. It just means the applicant doesn't want to do it anymore, so that's off the agenda. If you were here for that, sorry. For item 7, that's a conditional use request related to the sale of alcoholic liquor, wine, and beer at 4410 Southeast 14th. Is there anybody here in the audience that would object to this board granting a conditional use, which does come with conditions, for what's called a liquor store at 4410 Southeast 14th? Anybody here an objection to that? All I would need to see is your hand if you would object to that. And if anybody objects, then we'll put it on the regular agenda and take comments on it. Going once, going twice. Okay. Would there be a motion from the board, unless there's any concerns, to move item 7 to consent? Moved by Marlis, second by Rund. All those in favor, raise your right hand, say aye. All right, unanimous there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is read through the items that are on consent and poll the audience just briefly. So items on consent are recommended for approval from city staff. They feel that the requests are reasonable, meet the intent of the ordinance with certain conditions. But if either the appellant or someone in the audience would disagree with approving of these, we'll remove them and put them on the regular agenda so we can hear testimony. So I'm going to read through them quick. Item 2 is a conditional use request for use of a parking lot for special events at 2875 University Avenue. Anybody here in the audience opposed to granting that requested conditional use? Just raise your hand. Seeing none. Item 3 is a conditional use request for what I'd like to call ADM near 1935 East Euclid Avenue. Looks like some type of industrial use. Anybody opposed to item 3? Seeing none. Item 4 is a zoning exception request related to installation of some signage at 900 Keosauqua Way. Anybody opposed to granting the requested relief on item 4? Just hands up if so. Seeing none. Item 5 is a zoning exception request related to installation of some signage at 2706 Beaver Avenue. Anybody in opposition to item 5? Seeing no hands. Then item 7, as I mentioned, that'd be a conditional use for operation of a liquor store with some terms and conditions at 4410 Southeast 14th. So I just double check on that. Anybody opposed to that one? Seeing none. Any concerns from the board? If none, would there be a motion to grant the requested approvals for items 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7? Rhonda? All right, and second by Marlis. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, so if you were here for items 2, 3, 4, 5, or 7 as the appellant, in about a week, you'll get the decision in order that outlines the approval, and then you can move forward with your process from there. So thank you for coming in. We'll give everybody a few seconds here to clear the room, or they can stick around and listen to our other items. 3, 4. We have that some mistake.
Except not like banana.
Yeah, okay. Okay, for the regular portion of our agenda, we'll begin today, I believe, item 6, a conditional use request in the vicinity of 2901 CB&Q Street, named after one of Des Moines' oldest railroads.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the Commission. Item 6 is related to the property of vicinity of 2901 CB&Q Street. The proposal is amendment of the conditional use approved by zoning 2019 number 218 on November 20th, 2019 to now allow expanded use of the property for a junk and salvage yard business that includes auto recycling and junk and salvage operation. The appeal is conditional use for a junk and salvage yard in an I-2 district and reconsideration of the conditional use that was previously approved. And here's the property that is involved. There are actually 3 parcels that make up the property for this parcel that is in this general location, a parcel in this location, and then there's a third parcel. You can see the line there. That's in the southeast corner. And so the property currently is zoned to it's an I-2 district. It includes approximately a little over 30 acres in size. So it's located south of CB&Q Street. It is located north of the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad lines, and then it would be west of Southeast 30th Street. And here is an image of the what would be the western portion of the salvage yard as it exists today. Here is of the eastern portion. And then this would be the what would be the southeast corner of the property. right off Southeast 30th, right by the railroad tracks. Now, this property, in terms of zoning history, it was originally, the board granted a conditional use permit to allow a salvage yard use in 1973. Subsequently, they have been back to the board a couple times. Once in 1986, they obtained a variance for a 25-foot setback. At that time, you were required to be set back 25 feet, and they were requesting to install a fence right towards the property line. And so they were granted relief at that time. In addition, in 2019, they did amend their conditional use for the property, and they also obtained variance of the provisions that limit a solid fence within a minimum required front yard to be set back 3 feet. And so those appeals were granted. Additionally, it was to allow use of the salvage yard that had multiple structures, outdoor storage, and material and operations. And so that was approved with conditions at that time. And so today, the applicant, here is a layout. That's the property in its entirety. And here is the layout that the applicant is proposing. And so they are in front of us today to consolidate these 3 properties under one conditional use permit. And so the proposal consists of a new operator that would be coming in, consolidating the parcels, and allowing for additional outdoor storage area. This use would remain as the auto storage salvage yard. Existing trees within the fence would be removed to create additional storage. They are proposing for the existing granular surface, they are proposing a chip seal asphalt coating in all existing and proposed storage areas within the fence. They would propose to add concrete to all of the drive aisles and access to the area. They are looking to replace the fence as it exists today. In the I-2 district, up to 65% of the site could be an impervious area. However, the applicant has indicated that they do intend to go to 80% impervious surface area. That is something that would fall more under the purview of planning and zoning through a site plan approval process. So I'd like to keep that in mind. Let's see. In addition to the supplemental use regulations, which require storage yards, drive aisles, access to be paved with asphalt, cement, or similar product, it has to be approved by engineering, and we, at this stage, we don't have the information that we can make that determination. And once again, that would go back to the site plan review stage where they would provide the documentation showing that it meets a standard that engineering believes satisfies the Chapter 135 provisions. Once again, those are part of the planning and zoning realm for review. And so as staff was doing the evaluation of the storage yard, it was observed additionally in the previous conditional use that came in front of us that this isn't a location, a corridor that is highly visible. And so at that time, the board found that it was important to adhere to the C2 landscape standards, and provide open space plantings along the perimeter of the yard, along with street trees, 30 foot in center on the right-of-way for both public and street frontages, which is consistent with, and similar with the updated ordinance. Similar plant materials would be required, and for that reason, staff believes that they should be meeting all applicable landscape standards through the site plan review and approval process. Other than that, staff does believe that that they've satisfied all of the general criteria for adequately adhering to the safe, or looking after the health, safety, and general welfare of persons residing, working in, joining surrounding properties. The use would not unduly increase congestion in the streets, or create a public danger of fire, safety, or flooding. That it would not diminish or impair nearby property values. It is consistent with the general purpose of the zoning ordinance. Further, if the impact of such use actually became a problem, the zoning enforcement officer could bring it back for reconsideration of the conditional use. And here are the conditions that staff has presented as conditions of approval. And property owners within 250 feet of the property were notified. However, we did not receive any responses associated to that notification. In addition, the applicant did hold a neighborhood meeting. 2 people attended the meeting. Those that attended did not have any objections to the proposed conditional use.
Okay. Anything else, Frank? We're good for now? Questions for Frank from the board? Okay. All right. Thank you for your overview. So the way the hearing works now, the applicant or their representative has up to 10 minutes to address their board, to provide their reasoning for their request for the conditional use. And whoever would like to present, just need you to step up to the microphone. We just need your name and address.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Rick Baumhover with Bishop Engineering, representing the applicant this afternoon. I really don't have anything new to add to the staff's report. I think it's pretty inclusive of the past history of the site. I think I'll maybe just kind of summarize a little bit why we're here. I think because of there's new ownership of the properties, consolidating of the lots, and the improvements they intend to make kind of triggered the reason to come back before the board and get the conditional use re-looked at and approved again. And we're acknowledge the staff's recommendations, and many of those recommendations are what's in the current conditional use permit. So there's really nothing too new there for the applicant that they haven't been familiar with. So again, the applicant's looking to consolidate the properties into one, and as you saw on the one slide there, make some improvements with concrete driveways and chip sealing the areas, which we haven't gotten to engineering, but chip sealing can almost be looked at as an improvement than to recycled asphalt, which is oftentimes allowed in these circumstances. So we think we'll have a good case there as well. So With that, I ask for your approval, and can take any questions that you may have.
Yeah, any questions for Rick?
So you are in agreement with these 10 conditions
Yes.
that city staff laid out?
Yes.
Okay,
Good question.
thank you.
And Rick, I'm just curious, what is chip seal? What does that mean?
Well, I'm not all that familiar with it. We don't use it that often. A lot of times it is used in smaller communities and on lower residential roads.
Yeah,
It's an asphalt surfacing project or
Okay.
product.
Okay.
A lot of times you can think of like seal coats where they put
Yep.
the seal coat down and rocks are in that. This is
Okay.
a little bit kind of the reverse. They put the asphalt down on top of the gravel rocks, and then they put some gravel on top of that.
Got it.
And roll that in.
Okay.
So it's another asphalt paving type product.
I got you. Yeah.
So yes, it'll be
Yep.
taking kind of the gravelly gravel that's there, or even like if you had recycled asphalt, it's basically putting a layer of asphalt,
Gotcha.
sealant tar down on that and
Gotcha.
stabilizing the surface.
Yeah, like a lot of little small towns do that for their
Small
quote, paved
towns,
streets.
right, or
Gotcha.
even small, low-volume county roads will have that too.
Got you. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Rick.
All right,
Appreciate your
thank you all.
presentation. Okay, anybody else here to speak in support of the applicant? If anybody wants to support the applicant's position, they have up to 5 minutes. Seeing none, anybody speak in opposition to the applicant, or even in neutrality? Seeing none, any other questions for staff? If none, we'll close the public portion and go to board deliberation. And I always like to make the little statement that I've lived in Des Moines for over half my life, and for most of our cases, if it's a commercial business, probably been there, ate there, drank there. In this case, I've been to the junkyard and I bought some school bus seats one time. Long time ago. So I kind of know the setting down there. I'm sure that this will be a good improvement for them and the city as well. So I'd make a motion to approve the conditional use request, subject to the staff recommendations present.
I would second that.
Second by Marlis. Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 6-0. All right, Rick, you can tell your client they're good to go, and now they can follow through on the rest of the site plan stuff out of our hair, so.
Thank you very much.
All right, you bet. If I need some more parts, I'll come down. All right, item 7 had been moved to consent, so that'll bring us to item 8. Item 8 is a conditional use request from the Walnut Creek Community Church, the vicinity of 304 East Walnut Street. And I think Catherine's going to present.
Chair, members of the board, Catherine Dreyhaus, planner for the city of Des Moines. As mentioned, this property is in the vicinity of 304 East Walnut Street. Oops, excuse me. There we go. As you can tell, it's located at the corner of the northeast corner of the intersection of East 3rd and East Walnut Street. It has been utilized for a number of years as a unimproved surface parking lot. A couple of site photos. This is the adjacent property, joining across the public alleyway of the building that the church is sited within. And then just a few photos moving along west down East Walnut Street. To show you some context. The applicant is proposing to continue the use of this property, which is adjacent and separated by public alley right-of-ways from their principal use as a non-accessory surface parking lot, which means that there is no principal use on the subject property. And they would like to continue doing so as a conditional use so that it would not need to I'm going to back up on that comment. So that just gives you a little bit of context, the site photos, and then staff is recommending denial as this does not meet the intent and spirit of the municipal code or the zoning code. Particularly as a conditional use. We typically like to see this improved, and in this particular location, it is a site that we would, with the intent of the spirit in spirit of the zoning ordinance, we would like to see a higher use utilized on this property. So if you have any questions for me, I mean, kind of a short presentation.
Any comment cards or radius?
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
So we did receive one card back from the notification
Okay.
process that is in support of the church's request, but they did not provide us any comments. And one undecided.
Uh-huh.
As this is a condo, I guess it might not have shown up on the map.
Okay. So Catherine, I'm glad you just flipped through those. If you can go back to the overhead there, that kind of the consent map overhead, yeah. So the northwest parcel, which is not, in the orange, but where there is a building, is that building going to disappear in the parking lot expansion project?
Down here?
No, the one to the
Sorry.
north in the other perfect
In here.
square. Yeah, is that
Well,
building
this one's
remaining?
outside of the request, but as I
Oh,
understand, they
it
are
is.
going to be retaining that. But we're just
Okay.
looking at
That's
this parking lot
it
outlined in the
whatsoever.
orange.
Okay.
So-
And can you go back to the little map that they showed, or kind of their site plan, if you will? Okay. So in essence, I see the 301 East Locust building remains, but it kind of looks like they're using all of these lots for their support parking for everything. Is that right? Or that's kind of their intent?
Yeah, and that is true. One thing I wanted to make sure was clear was that this parking lot here, that's the subject of the conditional use today, has never been legitimately established. There was a previous lot there that was, it was a car lot years ago that was, I guess the building was torn down, and there's like a temporary surface put on, but they've never came in and done the required site plan. So it's not really a legal parking lot
Use
to
to
say they've
begin
been
with.
using it
Okay.
as a parking lot, but it's never lawfully been established. Whereas this parking lot to the north, I think, has been lawfully established.
Okay, and I realize that's not the lot in question, but it appears this looks all related. Is the real crux of this issue that because we have a public right-of-way because of the alley that makes these separate parcels, that segregates
Yeah,
the
that's
use?
part of it. And the other crux is that we, since this is the historic East Village neighborhood, the DX1, DX2 zoning districts don't really want surface parking in the urban core. We feel that parking should be provided in ramps or in, the basements of buildings.
Okay.
More of a shared parking environment, just so we get a higher and better use of the land. Just since this is a pedestrian neighborhood,
Right.
we really want stuff that
Okay.
provides life on the street more than
Right.
just a parking lot.
And not to put words in your mouth, but I heard Catherine say it, and you did too, well, it's kind of what we want, but what you're saying is what we want is within the zoning ordinance by statute and intent, correct?
Right, so
Okay. It's not
I don't
just your
remember- yeah,
preference.
When the new code took effect in 2019, it didn't allow
Right.
parking lots at all, but we amended it afterwards
Yeah.
to allow parking lots as a conditional
Got it.
use. So if it was the right situation,
Sure.
the board could grant it.
Yeah, because some of us still get annoyed we can't find parking spots over that way.
Right.
But, and I'm just curious, ask this of staff, Catherine or whoever, so since there is public right-of-way that's in between, could they potentially purchase the public right-of-way if the city chose to sell it and then
They would have-
combine?
Sure, they would have to go through the vacation process through
Right.
Plan and Zoning Commission and then purchase it from the city.
Okay,
I do know that as a general rule of thumb, the city's hesitant to sell a right-of-way
I was curious.
in the downtown without like a development plan.
I was curious, yeah,
Since
okay.
that- Yeah,
Yeah, I know in some places, yes, they'd like to get rid of alleys so they don't have to maintain them, but in other areas, it might still be very important for the city to retain those ownership rights.
yeah.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, is this the lot that came in front of us like 3 years ago for a hotel?
It is.
And we denied it because he couldn't get the height he needed because of
Right, they
it was
wanted,
obstructing the view of the Capitol?
exactly, the capital dominance overlay at the time limited buildings to 75 feet
Right.
of height, and the hotel wanted to be 85 feet. So you did deny the variance to the height, but then they were going
They could
to
have built a
put
hotel.
the parking in the basement and then comply with the 75-foot requirement.
Which
within-
just totally drives our cost out of line, so we do the project. So he sounds like he sold this lot to the church.
You did, yes.
Good question,
And
Dave.
the conveyance, your objection is because you want to have a better project than parking. You don't care about the alleys. They'll convey those probably to them anyway.
Right, right.
Yep.
Because parking is a challenge down there. There's surface parking down there that is in high demand in certain areas. So, okay, that's helpful. Thanks.
Justin?
I mean, I know we don't do hypotheticals, but if they came with a sort of a plan that was maybe geared towards a parking garage or something of that nature, the city
Right.
might be more, I guess, favorable.
Yeah, if they were saying they were only going to use this parking lot for, say, 5 years while they worked on a development plan, we might look more favorable. I don't know, there was an item a couple months ago over by the existing federal courthouse for a surface parking lot, but that was an existing parking lot. It wasn't like this one where if the board grants this conditional use, they'll have to have a site plan approved and then add the curbs and the landscaping and the other requirements. So they'll have to make an investment, whereas the other parking lot was an existing parking lot.
Okay, thank you.
So, staff, I'm just curious then, so is this is kind of a, well, if we don't approve this, then they really can't use it as is for parking now, right? This would be like an enforcement case now, correct?
Correct, right.
Okay, because I'm assuming they kind of have been using it for parking.
I believe so. I know it
Okay.
had been fenced
And
for
I can
a
ask
few
them
years
too.
while the
Yeah.
hotel was doing its due diligence, but
Okay, got you.
I know the fencing came in.
All right. Anything else for staff? Okay, thank you both very much. Okay, all right, applicant or representative of the applicant, you've got up to 10 minutes. We just need to start with your name and address.
Yes, my name is Luke Hookey. I'm one of the pastors at Walnut Creek Church, which is 323 East Locust, and the other adjacent properties with the exception of Open Sesame. And so just a little context here, then I'm going to have our architect come up and give a little more detailed plan of what we've been thinking about and doing. One is that we've been in the East Village since about 2007. Started with about 50 people, and today we have about over 1,000 people attending services on Sunday mornings. We have 3 services every single week on Sunday morning. Plus, throughout the week, we have many things going on. On our Wednesday nights, we have our kids ministries, so we have hundreds of kids as well as parents down at our building on our property every Wednesday night throughout the school year. Also, we have a college ministry from Drake University, from Grandview, and from DMAC. We're about 200 students every Thursday night down in the area in the East Village. And so, plus we have many other things, weddings, funerals, homeschool co-ops, many events and whatnot taking place on our property. And so we've been in the East Village for a better part of 16 years and kind of a fixture in the area. Serving the area, I think being a blessing to the city of Des Moines. I think for most of that time, pretty much the only church in the area, maybe with 1 or 2 exceptions. So this parking has been very valuable to us. A number of years ago, with the previous owner, we were given permission to park there. So we've been parking there for a number of years, striped the lot, try to take care of the lot without putting too much into it until within a year or so ago, we purchased the lot. And we purchased the lot as we were using it. We've been using it for many years as a parking lot to no communication from the city as otherwise, or knowing that it was not zoned for that. And so for us, it's a big deal because partly on a Sunday morning, we have 3 services, people leaving, coming, and going. If you look at the corner there, in our main entrance of East 4th and East Walnut, there is a drive-in there where people can drop off, but that gets quickly congested with the number of people, so that having those adjacent lots or that adjacent lot does provide some help in kind of removing kind of some traffic jams in that area as well as out into the city street there. And so for us, it's been very beneficial. We have a lot of families with young children, hundreds of kids. We have elderly folks as well, members who having on-site parking is helpful. It's helpful, as you guys have already stated. There's not very much parking in the area, and it's hard to find parking different times, especially in evenings when we use our building for events, because a lot of the city parking is pretty well picked up at that point in time. And so we do need it and would greatly appreciate it being continued to allowed to use or moved into a official, whatever the right language is, to make it a parking lot for our use. And so Josh Williams, our architect, he's going to come up and maybe just give a little more detail and direction as far as what we would hope to do.
Sure. Yeah, and if you want to share time, just need your name and address there quick.
Like Luke said, my name's Josh Williams, architect and partner at Slingshot Architecture. We're actually a neighbor. We're just a block south, so East Village is near and dear to our heart, and trying to get it the best we can is mutually beneficial for us as well. So we've been engaged with Walnut Creek Church since about 2019 about how to use the site, how to use the block. We've been going through a renovation of the 323 building, and the site plan was brought up to compliance with the current zoning regulations, and that's definitely in the intent of the church. They purchased both of these parcels on the west end of the site late last year. So we had been working with them on how to best utilize the site, and there's some big visions on how to use it, but there was a zoning enforcement on the parcel to the southeast of the block that has kind of sped us up a little bit, a little faster than maybe the church is financially feasible to do at this time. But the church does have a few funds set aside for some general maintenance and to get it not gravel anymore. So get it a little safe for those that would be using it, a little bit nicer aesthetic for property owners around the area as well. But my intent is that if I really want to do the site the right way and with the full goals of the church. And right now we're kind of just in this middle, like kind of gray zone of we can't really go full steam ahead with where they're at. And so, yeah, I think one of the key omissions kind of from the staff report was, so the DX2 zoning does allow for places of worship and kind of civic use, which both of these buildings would be classified under that they own. So for the block in general, they have two buildings that exceed that 1,000 square foot amendment that was put into the non-accessory lot language of the zoning code, and it's really just separated by these alleyways that are really just artificial, like parcel lines. Really the site as a whole really functions per the intent of that 1,000 square feet. This isn't a building that is purchasing a lot, a quarter block away, or it's directly adjacent. So I think we're somewhat hitting the intent of that amendment that was put in place, even though it's separated with the alleys. I don't know if there's any questions for me.
Sure. Questions for Josh?
Yeah,
Justin?
Hi, Josh.
Justin.
You mentioned sort of us unable to, there must be a vision that they're unable to obtain at this point, probably for financial reasons. What is that vision?
Right now they're at about 30,000 square feet. Eventually, for the needs of a church that's this size right now, we really need to be kind of closer to 40, 45,000. So I don't know if that final solution will be kind of extending that 301 building or the 323, but right now they don't own the Open Sesame lot, which is probably one of the bigger dominoes, like on the block as a whole,
Gotcha.
that is kind of holding us back. But yeah, they're kind of bursting at the seams right now. There's not enough kid space right now, so we're trying to help them utilize both of these projects, or both of these buildings as best they can.
Got it. Thank you.
So Josh, quick question here. So let's say we thought, okay, fine, we'll grant you your conditional use for your non-accessory parking lot, have a nice day. Even if we did that, I think you'd still have to take your client back through the site plan process, and you'd have to make some substantial improvements to the parking lot. Would you be prepared to do that?
That's one of the gray areas.
Yeah, because this
From the
board-
site plan pre-app that we had, that wasn't talked about.
Okay.
One of the reasons we applied to the zoning board was staff's comment about that east-west alley and not really being favorable to vacate that.
Sure.
And this maybe felt like the fastest way to get legal for that site to continue using it how they have been for years.
Right, it's, well, I always say to a degree, yeah, the use of the property is what we can grant, but how the property now must be
Yeah.
developed or improved for that use, that's usually not under our purview here. So what I'm getting at is, if you ask for something, even if you get it, are you going to be able to carry it out and execute it properly? Because I'm guessing you're going to have to paving and landscaping and some setback stuff. and-
Yeah, that's one of the gray areas that in that
Yeah.
pre-app, it didn't really come up,
Sure.
like what the full extent of compliance was going to need to be.
Okay.
But, I mean, none of the standard triggers would be kind of hit of reparceling or kind of improving it from a monetary standpoint, hitting that, the property value that's in the zoning code.
I guess, yeah, okay. I don't want to take this too far down that, but it's kind of like, well, yeah, it's hard to think about a contingency if that's not a contingency you want. But that's kind of what I have to think through on this. And again, it's not up to the board to suggest to you to resolve your situation in different manners, but yeah, if you, at 301 East Locust, what's the primary use of the smaller building for the church?
So right now, that's where their offices are at, and they have some adult classrooms that are meeting there.
Okay.
It was the former Koch brothers building, so there are two bays that were kind of their storage area, and we're looking at in a different kind of process of how to get a larger group meeting in that space as well, specifically for the teens.
Sure.
But
Yeah, so it's not the main worship center, but it would be accessory uses? and
there'd be
everything
like
for-
200 teens.
For the ministry? Okay.
200 teens in that space.
Yeah, because maybe in that case, fine, you just ask if you can buy the east-west alley and combine the parcels, and,
That's where we started.
yeah, but I'm not sure if you'd have then more parking than would be allowed for an accessory, or for parking anyway, But that's not necessarily on the table here, so, okay, just curious to get your take on that. Anything else anybody has for Josh or Luke? Okay, thank you both. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak in support of the applicant's request? If there's anybody here, they can have up to 5 minutes. Come on up. We just need your name, address, and you got up to 5 minutes to give your comments.
Brian Allen, 1518 31st Street. I am a member of Walnut Creek Church. Lived in Des Moines 7 to 8 years, somewhere around there. Been a member same time. Moved in the city around that same time. First, I want to start off with appreciate all you guys do for our city and zoning. I know it's not fun. I love living here.
Thank you.
And you guys help our city be nice and sustainable. Something that I think I want to point out is this parking lot is a benefit to the church, especially as I have 3 young kids. Having that use is nice for safety reasons. Getting kids out on the street in the busy East Village can be complicated, and I do feel like this adds a benefit to that. And so with all this I don't know much about the zoning process, but kind of listening, there's a lot of intent and discernment that has to go into uses, and I think that with the spirit of working together in Des Moines and being down in the East Village, I think this makes a lot of sense for the property, makes a lot of sense for people eating at Iowa Tap Room, Ceviche across the street, we skateboarders across the street, a lot of people park in that parking lot that aren't part of our congregation throughout the week. And so I think, as far as the East Village plan, I think this makes a lot of sense as well. The hotel, in my opinion, didn't make a lot of sense. I think you guys have understood that, and I think this makes a lot more sense. And I think I would just encourage cooperative spirit with the church. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. All right, thank you, Brian. Anyone else wish to speak in support?
Hi, my name is Charlie Maxwell. I live at 1325 43rd Street. I am also a member of Walnut Creek Downtown and also volunteer with the church sometimes. So I just wanted to speak in support of this. Not a whole lot to offer beyond what has already been said. I think that our church's heart is to really love and support the city. We want to be here to be a staple in the community. I feel like having more parking will help us do that. It's nice to know that we have a place to go. We do have so many kids. We have more kids than our parents have hands to hold them to get into the building for the different initiatives that we have during the week. So I think that would be very helpful. I think it's also worth mentioning, people were talking about doing a parking garage and kind of stacking it. I just see kind of a benefit of also seeing the open space of using that. For example, in a couple of weeks, we're having a movie night in the parking lot, not in the one in question, but the one north that we already own.
Good
So
clarification.
Wanted to clarify that. But yeah, we're excited about that. We're excited to be a part of what the East Village is doing to provide an environment for community. So I think having that space will help us do that. We, of course, want to make the parking lot better. We know that it's not in the best shape that it could be. I think we have a lot of great research that's gone into it, and we want to work with you and partner with you in that and making it the best that it can be for the city. So we appreciate your time and hope that we can have a big parking lot.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming down today. Anybody else that wishes to speak in support of the applicant?
Hi, my name is Brad Ritter. I live at 300 Walnut Street in Des Moines. Yeah, I am also a member of Walnut Creek. I have been going there about 2.5 years now. Moved to Des Moines right after college. Just kind of echoing what everyone says. We have a lot of families, and corralling kids, as we know, can be really tough at times. And just the proximity to the church makes it much easier for them, not having to cross streets, not having to worry about where you're going to park. I also help with the middle school ministry on Wednesday nights, and that is in the 301 building kind of that we were talking about earlier. And just having the parking there makes it super easy. We meet at 6:30 on on Wednesday nights, and if we didn't have that lot, it's very hard, very challenging to find parking in the area without having to just park somewhere and hope for the best, or have to park blocks away or something like that. So I think just continued use. I know the East Village promotes itself on diversity, and I feel like this is a great way to continue to diversity the East Village. We've been there for a while, and just continuing to be a staple in that. We try to involve ourselves in the community. I know last year with the holiday promenade, we opened up our building just for cookie decorating and bathrooms and different things like that. So we're making efforts to continue to open up our building to the community and to the area. And I know just having families and stuff, I know when my family comes to visit me at church, we go to all the shops around it and everything afterwards. So I think we bring people to the East Village that might not potentially be coming to the East Village on a regular basis too. So yeah, I just think it's a great that while we may not be a hotel or a business, we're continuing to bring people to the area, and we're continuing to try to be a part of the area. And so, yeah, thank you for your time, and yeah. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Brad. Okay, anybody else that wishes to speak in support? Seeing none, anybody who wishes to speak in opposition? Opposition or even neutrality? All right, seeing none, do we have any further questions for staff or zoning enforcement officer? Yes, we don't want to leave out that opportunity. Eric, if you'd like to address us in any fashion, that'd be great.
Eric Lundy, Deputy Director, Neighborhood Services.
Yeah, I should start calling you that. Congratulations.
That's all right. I still serve in the capacity as a zoning enforcement officer. So, this did come about as a complaint and a zoning violation, basically. That said, the intent of the code is to establish surface parking in those situations where it's determined it fits within the context of everything downtown. This never was established as off-street parking either. There may be portions of it that were considered accessory to the vehicle display function that ceased. Then it was used for construction staging, which is why you have the fenced area for a number of years for the project to the west for the Staybridge Suites and the Hanson, Capitol Square Lofts? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Anyway, the apartments to the west. So, certainly there's no argument that, ad hoc parking has occurred, probably without any notice from an enforcement standpoint, but once we get a complaint, then we have to look at it. What we also know is under the old code, vehicle display and parking did not equate, so in terms of giving it, non-conforming rights over time, we certainly have case law where the city lost in making the argument that the same standards should apply to both off-street parking and vehicle display, and we did not prevail on that situation, and so we are aware that the way it was interpreted by the court was that it was not considered two of the same. So moving forward in our new code, we've certainly made standards that are applicable to parking. So when we do have surface parking, we do want it to have proper, striping, maneuvering, landscaping, et cetera. So that's important. So if the board is inclined, I think you want to take into consideration that they would follow through with a site plan, even though that's not your purview directly. If you are inclined, you would probably want to condition that if they didn't follow through at some point in time to comply with site plan, that it could be brought back to the board to remove the conditional use. So that you'd probably want that built in as a condition if you're inclined to approve this. The other thing I should mention is that one of the issues with surface parking occurring in the urban core may not be thought of, immediately. Certainly people need it. There's nobody questioning their motivation for why they would be benefited by the parking. But after hours, these places are problematic. They attract things that they shouldn't have, like congregating people, not the congregants of the church necessarily, but
Midnight mass.
they generate a lot of complaints from illicit activity. So one of the things I think you would want to take into consideration if you were inclined to approve this is also some management or some policing to avoid the types of problems that might occur. It was mentioned there was going to be events and things. I think you want to make some allowance. Normally, those things we would ask them to do a temporary use, depending, or at a minimum, a sound permit if they were going to have amplified sound as part of a movie night, for example. If they were going to bring in a food truck, they probably don't have a premise permit for a food truck, so they would need to have some kind of temp use when they do those events, which those can be done administratively.
Right.
When they become frequent, then they probably also need to ask the board, to have them more periodically, which the board gets often from other places. But so just be mindful of that as well.
Gotcha.
And any other questions on the enforcement path? Or
I'm just kind of curious, Eric. Let's say if not even if we approve this, but if somebody was putting in an accessory parking lot in the East Village, would they have to have like the little black wrought iron fence and that?
Normally,
kind of
they would be asked to have decorative
Yeah.
parking lot perimeter. That could certainly be waived through the site plan process. If that
But all I'm getting at is normally if they do site plan, then yeah, that's kind of the
Parking lot
impression I have
perimeter,
in
yep,
my head.
they would have
Perimeter
that, yeah.
fencing, low fencing, and ornamental trees, certain amount of landscaping.
And they've experienced that with their existing
Yeah.
church site,
Okay.
so they actually have an
Okay.
approved site
I've
plan
got
for
you.
their
And if somebody, let's say someone or anyone has a legal parking lot in the East Village, if they wanted to have gates or chains or gate arms to control access, they can do that?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
they could. If there's a building inside that contained area, they would probably have to do a lockbox for emergency services to get
To
access.
get
but
in,
yeah.
right.
They could certainly barricade that off with every level, the parking lots that the city have
Yeah.
the bars that
Yeah.
go up
yeah.
and down.
But they have the
Yeah.
ability to do that, to
Yes.
control their own parking lot for whoever may have
Yeah.
a parking lot.
Or police it if they want to make it available to
Exactly.
the general public, yeah.
Exactly, gotcha, okay. Anything else for Eric? Okay, anything else for staff, any questions? Justin?
The only thing I was going to ask, if we would grant this, if there was other conditions that other staff members may suggest.
I'll let the planners.
Yeah.
The one I would say, the key one would be that it could be brought back to you if it.
If it's a conditional use, it always can be, right?
Well, make sure that's a condition in the.
Okay.
In the
Because we're recommending
Denial.
denial at
Yeah.
the staff level.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to know if there's
Yeah.
more from.
Yeah, if,
Bert's
Bert has a
the
few.
Boy Scout of this deal. He's probably already got this in his pocket.
We do have 3 conditions drafted, but in one of those was, like Eric said, have the ability for the zoning officer to bring it back. The other would be to limit it to no more than 5 years. And then the third was that it complies with the site plan requirements, which I know he had said in the site plan, or in the pre-application meeting, they were told a site plan wasn't required, but we pulled up the minutes from that meeting, and one of the notes in the minute is that a site plan is
Okay.
required.
yeah,
And that a site plan does require the decorative wrought iron fence and the
Right.
perimeter plantings around, so
Yeah.
street trees.
yeah. Yeah, this may, Justin, go ahead.
Well, the only other thing is there any, does it mention lighting as part of that as well, or no?
That would be part of the
Site
site
plan,
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom?
When they purchased this property just recently?
I think I heard them say last December. I don't know if it's December 21 or 22.
Yeah, late summer. This property was last summer. The pre-01 was just prior to
Okay.
that.
Okay.
So about a year ago, a year and a half.
Anything about it zoning in the title opinion that was,
Or purchase agreements or anything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to let them answer.
Yeah, there's kind of a, I always say there's a subtle lesson for applicants as well as those watching in the audience. Before you buy property that you want to have a use on, you should contact the city of Des Moines and check and make sure what the conditions are.
Right.
So that, you know, if you're investing in buying like real estate, you know you'll be able to use it the way you intend to, or you'll understand what it's going to take to get it there.
Right.
Yeah, so, and Bert, this isn't part of deal-making with necessarily the city, but if we were to grant a conditional use subject to site plan, I would probably say, well, if they're going to put in lighting and trees and fences, I wouldn't want to have it be like temporary, where they got to go tear it all out again. Maybe this is for the board discussion. But if we just wanted to approve even a just temporary conditional use, kind of almost as is, but with a limited time, is it like mud out there now, or?
I don't think
I mean,
it's
I don't think it's
mud.
that
I don't know
bad,
if
but-
Catherine had
Okay.
photos in the
Yeah,
presentation.
and we'll let the applicant have a quick rebuttal here, but, you know, I wouldn't want somebody to put $1 million of improvements to meet a site plan to have something they use for 5 years, and then they have to throw it away again. Or just fence it off, and they can't use now a parking lot that meets site plan. So there's a fair amount of paving there, even if it doesn't meet the requirements.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see to the east of the
East.
alley,
They made them.
they've improved that, and so
Yeah.
the required site plan would trigger needs like these trees with these
Right.
landscape islands.
Okay.
They'll have to pull the paving away from the front property lines along East Walnut and East
little bit.
Third.
Yeah.
So you're right, it's going to be a significant investment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gotcha. Okay. All right.
So
Well, Eric, Catherine, Bert, thank you. We'll go ahead and let the applicant have another 3 minutes. If there's anything you guys want to add. Luke, you can bring us home on this.
All right, I appreciate that. Yeah, we recognize, unfortunately, that well, now we know, the
Well,
property
yeah.
we purchased was not.
Hindsight, yeah.
Yeah. So, but our intention, regardless of that, was to make it a property that's more beautified, if you will, than it is currently now, and safer than it is now. So we don't want it to be like it is, but we also don't want to invest money into it, not knowing if, to your point, I don't want to spend $1 million investing in the property if we're not going to be able to use it. So we're willing to work through and to talk through and to figure out how to make it a better space if we're given the ability to use it as a parking lot. So we want to be we want to work together. We're not here to just leave it as is. It's not good for our people. You can see there's concrete. There's also some gravel spots, and so it needs work by far. And then we got the alleyways in between, which would be nice to remedy that problem because it is currently it's not used by too many people other than us, and it's so it just separates between that east and west alleyway. We own both parcels of land, so it would seem like it would make sense for us to try to obtain that at some point in time. But I don't know if any other questions or.
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Luke. Okay, we'll close the public portion and go to board deliberations. Any initial thoughts?
Obviously, the city wants a higher and better use. This isn't on the tax rolls because it's owned by a church.
Yep.
So I can see where the city's pushing back. But here, these guys now have a congregation of 1,000? Is that what he said? They've got activities going on throughout the week. Parking downtown is not easy. And to expect them to park in an off-site garage, I don't even know what the closest one would be. But there's a bunch of other businesses around there too scrambling for parking. So to have this more as a captive spot that they can use for their own use, obviously they've made some major improvements to the east in that building. The building to the north is now being used for offices, and it sounds like some other youth activities. That site's not big enough to do a real big project, and that hotel guy's a perfect example. He needed X space for parking, and he needed X keys or rooms for his hotel in order to make the math work. So, I'd like to think that the city would be willing to come to the table and work with, let's just say, exploring vacating at least one of the alleys to make this feasible. And then it looks to me like they're, and it sounds like they're willing to put in the money and the effort, their architects here, as well as we can see what they've done to the parcel to the east, and let's have them dress this up, and then let's let it go. I think as a community, we need to help these people. And not every project is the optimal project for the city. There's a lot of stuff that's going on downtown and has gone on. But that doesn't mean that it's a one-size-fits-all and that ought to be on every corner. So, and I would say if we're going to grant this request, I wouldn't put a timeline on it either. Because they're not going to, who wants to spend money if I know in 5 years I got to come back? And who knows what's going to go on then? I mean, this is a church. Hopefully, their congregation's going to grow and they're going to want to have more building. And more places for their congregation to meet. I don't know. I think this has been sitting empty for 3 years, at least, maybe 4. So, I'll tell you right now, I'm for this and letting them have this lot for what they want.
So Dave, to kind of just grab a little lightning in the bottle with what you said there. So if you say that you don't want a time limit on their allowable use of the parking lot, do you want them within a reasonable time period to bring it up to the site plan requirements?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I think we ought to have some requirements on that, and I think.
Okay. I'm with you.
And if they don't want
I'm
to
with
comply
you.
with that, then bring it back and let's take it
with you.
another direction. But
Okay.
that's where I
your
think we meet in the middle.
Yeah, I got your clarification there. Others? Rhonda, do you want? Anybody else?
Chair, I would get behind this effort if we add some conditions to it. Some of those conditions have been already discussed, but yes, to have a site plan within, I don't know if we want to say 6 months or something, and that we would, part of the concern is also security and safety.
Yeah.
And I think, so that has to be a condition of some sort of management of the parking lot. Good lighting, I guess, is already part of the site plan. But those are the things that I would need in conditions to support this action.
Well, amazing discussion. I think it's coincidental that this is the picture that got left up after our 39 minutes of discussion on this item, because I think they say a picture says 1,000 words. If this was a picture used for the East Village brochure, I'd go, looks pretty crappy. By the same token, if this parking lot here was improved, I might say, oh, well, I'm not worried about having a 4 or 5 story density apartment building or ramp here. That looks pretty darn good. So if there's a way that we could bring this forward to get to that goal, to improve it, if this was a half a block away, if it was on the other side of a true city street, but for all intents and purposes, and I realize it's public right of way, they don't own it, they don't have they can't just adopt it by default. Yeah, it looks like it's the entrance to their parking lot. That's what the alleyway does. But if we were inclined to move this forward, what if we had something like, hey, you guys have until December 31st to get an approved site plan. If we pass this conditional use for non-accessory parking lot here, give them till the end of this year, it's a little over 6 months, to bring forward a site plan and get that approved. And what I mean by that is, if you can convince the city to sell you part or all of the 2 alleyways before then your site plan would look different. Or if you just want to go with it as is, you put your site plan together, you get that approved, we let you use the parking lot, but then you implement that site plan fully within X amount of time, or the non-accessory parking conditional use will expire. Now, I don't know what that time would be. I had in my mind like maybe 2 years from the date of the site plan approval. Because they're going to, and although business considerations and money are not how we make our decisions, but with anybody, we've had plenty of people here, we've given them 18 months or 2 years to improve or expand their parking. We've done it with some of the little food places down in the South Market District. We've done it with Worship Center on Southeast 14th. We gave them time to use gravel parking that they wanted, but they had to eventually pave it. So what would you guys, again, trying to coalesce that? I understand where the city's coming from completely. I don't want to see these kinds of parking lots remain in the East Village, but if we can bring one up to par, I actually have a feeling it'd be probably a benefit in the end.
Well, I think as pointed out, I mean, it sounds like other businesses are using that parking lot too.
Yeah, and
right?
without us over-managing it, the conditional use would have conditions. It can't be congestion and this and that, but they can figure out how they would meet those, because I don't want to direct what they're going to have for gates and security. I think that gets far past us. If they would be required to have permits to do any special events or activities, they'd need the special permits anyway. We can just have something in there that says it's for use of your parking, and any other uses would have to meet ordinance or administrative approvals. Okay.
I have another question.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know how to actually ask this, but
Mhm.
could this be something that, the architect said that, it's kind of in the gray area, which means, of course, they don't have the funding at this point, I take it. But is there any way that, is it against the rules if they would rent out spaces when they're not using them?
There are other people that have done that, and I think that would probably have to be, if there's something administrative. Gary, do you know anything? Since you're our board advisory, you can talk.
I can't think of anything offhand. In 134, I don't know. There might be other restrictions that would keep them from doing it. I don't know if Eric or Bert might know.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of had the reverse. We've had bars that use their parking lots at night, and then in the daytime, they're rented out to offices, and I think
And I was just thinking,
However, the fact that it's a non-taxable entity and they start renting space out might cause them some problems tax-wise.
Okay.
They might lose a tax exempt
They'll have to
status.
consult H&R Block on that one.
Yeah, listen,
But yeah, no, I totally get it. Good
Same
point.
person to do the title opinion.
I have seen that before, yes.
And that's a good point. I was only asking the
Yeah,
question.
no,
to-
yeah,
Because if you
yeah.
go to all of this in
Yeah.
order to give them that opportunity,
Right.
but then they can't
Right.
fund it.
But they could let someone else use their parking lot as a courtesy and not gain rent for it.
Right.
As good neighbors,
But
which I
here-
can't tell you to do that, but
yeah, here again, if we give them what they're asking for and they don't make it, they don't execute on it, then it
Right.
comes back and it goes away.
Exactly, exactly.
So there's an expectation that we're going to set.
Okay.
And Mel, I
And
agree with
incentive.
you with your conditions and with 2 years. I mean, 2 years is going to fly by
Yeah,
these people.
yeah, yeah.
By the time you get a site plan organized, if that takes 6 months, they're going to talk to the city about conveying
Yeah.
potential an alley and what does that look like? And so we got to give this thing some
Yeah.
time and
Yeah.
give them some
Yep.
runway. Let's
Yep.
give them some runway to make it happen.
Well, they have a professional design consultant on their team. Good advice, so. Well, then, what if I try to just kind of shape this a little?
Yeah.
So I'd make a motion to grant a conditional use for the non-accessory parking lot for the, roughly 22,400 square feet of the parcel, subject to the following conditions. They shall bring forward and have approved a site plan for development of this parking lot. Site plan shall be approved by December 31st of this year. And again, if they can work another train track on this and you want to buy some real estate or right-of-way and the city process takes X amount of time, that's not for us to review or suggest, but think about that. So they have a site plan that's approved by December 31st, and then they carry out that site plan and make the parking lot improvements within the site plan by then December 31st of 2025. That's 2 years from now. And within that site plan, through administrative review or P&Z, if there are changes, if there are adjustments, if there are allotments that they choose to give, so be it. But in general, I would think, if they have a site plan that's approved, it's going to improve the look of this with landscaping and how it fits. Other conditions, if there are any other uses of the parking lot that are being requested besides parking, special events, et cetera, that there's some language in there. Administrative language is a condition that they'd have to seek appropriate administrative or permit approvals. That sound okay, Gary?
I think so. Yeah, I didn't hear anything that caused me any concern in that.
Yeah.
Bert rattled off 3. Does that
Yeah.
include those?
Yeah, what else? Is there a way you can share, or you? Well, kind of I think the motion on the table is, if they implement the site plan within the 2 years of the site plan's approval, then they could have the parking lot forever. But with the conditional use remains in effect. There's no expiration date to the conditional use unless they violate its terms of congestion and causing a nuisance.
Sure, the only other thing that I mentioned,
Yeah.
I think Eric Lundy mentioned this, was just the security of the parking lot and some language talking about management of the parking lot.
So they can't cause congestion or headaches or hassle as part of their conditional use, just like any bar. So in my opinion, it'd be up to them to figure out what that security
Okay,
is.
okay.
If they want to hire that off-duty Des Moines
Gotcha.
police officer every night, they can do, see, he's paying attention back there. Or if they want to put up an automatic gate, if they want a booth with a guy in it, great. But the idea is there'll be a condition in there, which we would normally have for these types of parking lots, that it doesn't cause any issue. Yeah. So I'd say, so with my motion then, again, a site plan by end of this calendar year, and then they carry out and put the parking lot in with the approved site plan by end of year 2025, along with conditions 1 and 3, with language as shown here. That clear enough? I will. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm happy you second that, Dave, because you let off on that very well. So, all right, so we've got a motion and a second. As long as the motion's clear for the board, all those in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, duly noted. All right, so the motion carries 4-1, so you guys have some homework to do, but I think this could be a benefit to all when it's carried out. So, all right. It was, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, it was 5-1 with Tom in opposition. Yeah, sorry. Okay, all right, clear on that one? Okay, all right, thanks for coming in, guys, and staff will get back with you with our formal decision in order for the record about a week from now. Okay, other business, just minutes, anything else we need to do? That's it? Okay, if you were here at the last meeting, if anybody has any changes to the minutes, please note. If none, would there be a motion for approval? Rhonda?
Okay, I'll second.
Second by Marlis. All those in favor here last month, raise your right hand. All right, motion carries 6-0. Okay, all right, this hearing is adjourned.